A reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 8. The flood subsides. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the livestock that were with him in the ark. And God made a wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were closed. The rain from the heavens was restrained, and the waters receded from the earth continually. At the end of 150 days, the waters had abated. And in the 7th month, on the 17th day of that month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. And the waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made, and sent forth a raven. It went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove found no place to set her foot, and she returned to him to the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her, and brought her into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. And then he waited another 7 days, and sent forth the dove, and she did not return to him anymore. In the 601st year, in the 1st month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. In the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried out. Then God said to Noah, "Go out from the ark, you and your wife, and your sons wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may swarm on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife, and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth, went out by families from the ark. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, "I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So here we continue to read about the flood that God brought about the face of the earth, and how Noah and his family, along with several animals, were inside this ark. A whole zoo of animals were inside this ark. And I see how Noah first released the crow, and then he released the dove. He would basically wait like 7 days between to release the crow and then the dove. And they would basically let him know that the waters had subsided, and that there was dry land again. And he looked at and he saw that the earth was dry, and yet he still had the dove leave even after it had come back with an olive branch. Obviously, the little piece of olive branch in his mouth was proof that the trees were once again flourishing, no longer beneath the water, but in the air and the surface that was dry. Um, and so Noah also released the dove, but this time it didn't come back. And then he waited yet another 7 days to see if the dove came back, and it didn't. So I guess that right there was the clear indicator, was the cue that he took from God, that it was okay to open up the ark from the inside. And I know as big and well built the ark was, he needed to be sure that it was ready to be opened, because closing it back up again would require probably another flood. So he wanted to make sure that it was dry and it was okay to open it up for all the animals to come out. And sure enough, God even spoke to Noah on the 27th day of the second month, and told him that he can go out with his wife and his sons' wives, and they had to bring out every living thing, every animal that they had in the ark. And I'm sure by now, in the time of the 40 days and 40 nights of which it was all closed up, and it was during the flood, these animals more than likely procreated, and some even had kids in the ark, had offspring. So there was more to bring out. I mean, I could imagine, probably not, probably so. And of all these animals, Noah found fit to make an altar and offer up some of these clean animals. Not I mean, apparently in the Old Testament, which we're reading from, there was such a distinction between clean animals and unclean animals, and I don't know which ones were the clean and which ones were the unclean. But obviously pigs are considered an unclean animal. That's why a lot of Jews don't even eat pigs. So Noah made it a point to sacrifice clean animals on the altar to God after the flood, realizing that God had spared him and his family, and he come through on his side of the promise of resetting all humanity through Noah and his family. And that's what he did. And God found it pleasing, found Noah's offerings on the altar pleasing, and it was like a pleasing aroma. And God took upon himself that day to declare that he was that he will never again curse the ground because of man. For the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. So God right there realizes that mankind, men and women, we're not holy people. We're very much flawed. We're very much prone to sinning, to living a sinful life, and sometimes in a very, very bad way. I mean, the sins run the gamut. Some are lightweight, and some are serious. And so God sees that all youth seem to have a tendency to sin and not care about obeying God. So not because of that will God be cursing the ground anymore. And he also said, neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done. So basically what he's saying is that he's not going to flood the entire earth to kill off all the animals and people that populate the planet. He's not going to do it that way no more. But that's not to say he won't do it in a different way next time, or that he won't use a combination of things. I mean, nowadays you hear about comets, and I know I'm jumping ahead of myself, but when we think of that dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, that he had the prophet Daniel interpret for him, he saw a big statue of himself, whereas like a rock from heavens came flying and hit this enormous statue of Nebuchadnezzar right at the feet where it was made out of iron and clay, like a mixture of iron and clay. And it brought the whole thing tumbling down, crashing down, demolishing that statue of Nebuchadnezzar. And so I can't help but think, that was probably an asteroid or a comet flying from outer space and hitting the surface of the earth and somehow impacting life as we know it and making the world know who God really is. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if that happens within my lifetime. I really don't. I get that feeling within myself that, we could see God's glory display itself in a major way, in a biblical way again. Whereas the whole world is going to be witness to it, and it's going to impact everybody's consciousness to realize that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is the only one and true living God. Always has been, always will be. Sure, the Antichrist is trying to take, all the glory some way, somehow, and submit humanity to his will, but God is still God, and the Antichrist is still a created being and can't even hold the fight against God. Oh, no, not at all. Unless God um, gives him free will without interfering. There's no way he can compete against God. Nobody can compete against God. It's just better to just accept God's will. Well, anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but God's basically saying that he's never again strike down every living creature as the way he has done with the flood. And he's not going to interrupt the seasons and the cold and the heat year long. The summer and the winter, the day and the night will not cease. Now that also brings me to what I've been hearing about quite a bit lately, such a thing as 3 days of darkness. Now I don't know too much about it. I just know that one of my favorite saints, if not my favorite saint, Saint Padre Pio, believed in it. Believed that there would come a day where we would experience 3 days of darkness. And it basically says, don't go outside during those 3 days of darkness. Don't even open the window or the doors. But anyway, that's a topic for a different day. God bless you all.